Hello, and welcome to Property Matters. 40 minutes of lively chat and debate around all matters property, designed to be of interest to everyone who has an interest in property. Property Matters is supported by Fairview International Property Consultancy and Town and Country Property Auctions London Limited. Despite it being the weekend before Christmas, property has been very much in the news, and as always, we'd welcome your thoughts and comments, either in the comments section below the programme or, of course, via email propertymatterstv@gmail.com. And as always, to discuss all matters property, my property expert every week is, of course, Joe Joshi. Joe, a couple of weeks ago I wished you happy Dubai, and today I suppose I should wish you happy Christmas.
Yes, happy Christmas, Paul. Yeah, what a Christmas it's going to be, with all matters changing every day, every second, and every plan that everybody has is chucked into some sort of turmoil or frenzy. I was listening to the news this morning, and obviously the mass exodus of trying to get a home for Christmas last night prior to the midnight Cinderella scenario. Of turning into the pumpkin. Everybody had to be on trains trying to get home because, of course, Tier 4 came into place as of midnight last night. Yeah, quite a different Christmas.
Yes, certainly the M3 last night. I was driving back on the M3 last night. Was very, very busy indeed. So, okay, so. Let's look at some of the stories that are happening this week. Busy week in property, as I say. And a couple of weeks ago, Joe, you'll recall we did have the figures from Zoopla, or the predictions, should I say, for 2021. And this week it's the turn of Rightmove. So they're making some interesting suggestions. They're suggesting that house prices should rise by 4% in 2021. They're talking about the fact that buyer demand is currently up 53% since this time last year, which is quite something. And also that this year we're going to see approximately 6.6% as the increase in property prices, which they suggest is unsustainable. So what's your thoughts?
Well, of course, it's unsustainable. This year's boost in property has fundamentally been the driver of the change of the way that we are all now going to be living. And so therefore people have had time on their hands to think about their own way of living. And so subsequently there has been movement, there has been some good motivation from the Chancellor with stamp duty holidays. And so quite a lot of tools that have been provided this year for people to think. Of course, some of those will change next year, and subsequently it'll have a leveling off. But that's always been property, Paul. To be honest with you, throughout all the years, there's always been the highs and the lows, and the reasons and why these things have a sort of a splurge and an increase in value, and then it sort of levels out a bit later on when things kind of have some sort of normality. And there is no such thing as normality in 2020, I have to say. And so I'm not surprised that here we have some, amazing figures for the property market.
Yes, I mean, they're talking about the fact that a maximum saving, for example, if you're in Wales, could be £2,450. Obviously, the price of a property in the south, say 500,000, then you're talking about a £15,000 saving, which is relatively significant. But as you rightly say, over a period of owning the property, the figures are relatively small.
They are, but then when you look at again savings sitting in an account somewhere, they're relatively good. So as the property is my passion, I can tell you that it is still, in good times or bad, still going to be the best form of investment that anybody makes. It's the safest, and it's always going to be there. I was thinking about this actually, funny enough, this morning, just before we sort of came on. I thought, with all the things that have been happening throughout the year, property will be here no matter what happens in our personal lives. And so many losses have happened this year. so many dear ones. And when you sort of look at the motivation, you sort of think about, you know, we're on this fast track of life, but actually these properties that are been here for hundreds and maybe thousands of years, when you look at some of those fantastic castles and so forth that have been there, you know, we will come and go, but property will stay, and therefore would be an amazing investment no matter what happens, really.
There's an interesting comment in the article. It talks about the fact that if people do miss the property stamp duty deadline on 31st of March, that sellers are already thinking, well, maybe I'll reduce my price by the amount that they were going to save to ensure the deal continues. That's an interesting development, I guess, bearing in mind it's a buyer's market at the moment. So, seller's
I think
market.
it was gonna be inevitable, Paul, that at some stage something was gonna have to give. Either the Chancellor has gonna have to sort of do a bit of a U-turn and say, look, you know, I mean, and unfortunately the government have really had no choice in this whole 12 months of their journey. They have been thrown more curveballs than you can probably imagine, even in a game of cricket that you could have, and each time they've had to sort of bat themselves out of it, or use all the cricket analogies that one could use. But the point is that we don't know, they don't know, and every day that changes, and there's nothing to say that that may not change yet. Towards the end of this thing, I mean, only this week has had to extend the furlough by a month, which, you know, was going to end up at the end of March, and now it's at the end of April at the moment. And watch this space. I mean, if things continue to go the way they are, it may be that it's going to be even longer. So we don't know the answer to that. However, everybody has to have a plan, and the plan is that, you know, by the end of 31st of March, you know, the stamp duty situation doesn't change. Yes, people will go back to negotiation tables. Either the seller will have to take a view and say, you know what, I want to sell this, and if I have to give a little here, you know, that's what I have to do. And buyers will take a view and say, well, if this is the only money I'm saving, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to have to. But there will be costs, so they have to. It's all about a balance. You know, they would have spent time, energy, money on legal fees, searches, etc., let alone the emotional value, which there is, you can't put a price on, because people have decided in their minds that, you know, this is where they're going to go, this is what they're going to do, this is where they start to plan. They plan, you know, the carpets and the curtains, the showers and the kitchens and bathrooms and so forth. And so there's a huge emotional price, let alone the stamp duty price that you've got to consider in this.
Yeah, interesting. Because similarly, this week we've had a report that says that a third of people will pull out if they miss the deadline. 140,000 people waiting to complete, Joe, on an estimated 418,000 sales. This is according to Zoopla. So, are we in danger of the bubble bursting, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think, you know, those that will want to buy will still buy. And those that will use this as an excuse not to buy will probably never going to buy. You know, so I understand that everybody uses a lever or some sort of leverage in order to try and get the best possible deal. I've been negotiating property for the last 40 odd years of my life, and I understand that everybody has to have their little quirkiness. However, if they really want to buy this, if it's really a home and not a house, it's really a proper investment, then there'll be a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, and we'll find that way, and those people will also find the way. But if they really didn't want to be buying that, and they really weren't actually keen on it, then they weren't going to be buying in the first place. So I think, you know, that's the reality of it, Paul. I mean, I can give you all the sort of views that, you know, all the pundits would say, but I'm just, you know, saying to you that experience tells me that if you really set your heart on something and you want to do it, and you've way past that point, you've got your finances organized, you've gone through all of the troubles there are, and you're at the tail end, it's a deciding factor. Do I want to do this and do not? And, you know, later on, I'll cover some of the points and some of the reasons why I think most people ultimately will end up doing the deal.
71%, according to Zoopla, reckon that the stamp duty holiday should be extended. What's your view?
Well, there's been petitions after petitions, and there's wishes. You know, if we could all have everything extended the way we want it, we'd love it. I mean, everybody would love to have a furlough extended to maybe to the end of 2021 if they can, 75-80% of their salary. Why wouldn't you? Everybody would want it, and yes, from a property point of view, I would love that to be extended, because at the end of the day, it's good for my business, it's good for my sellers, and it's certainly good for the buyers that have a chance to step and put their first foot on the run of the ladder of owning and home ownership and property. So every opportunity that is given is a good opportunity, and I can't but endorse that. However, it is always been a tool that the government had, and I've said this, I think, in so many previous of our programs, where they use the property market as the bait, the tool that either they want to drive it, and in this current situation with the pandemic, the government has chosen the property market, inverted commas, be it road, rail, any development, any structural point, so that they can create those jobs, create those homes, create those scenarios, and some rules have been changed that allows more development going in certain areas. So all of these things, but they'll build themselves out. It's the old war adage, isn't it? Let's build our way out of this, and that's what we're going to do.
Mm. So who is buying the property at the moment? That's the interesting question. Well, according to Property Industry Eye this week, landlords seem to be a large part of the process. 15% of buyers last month were landlords looking to purchase property. And interestingly, Joe, landlords paying around £80,000 less for the properties compared to owner-occupiers. So the average price paid by the landlords was 180,000, 80 grand less than the owner-occupiers. So interesting that they're able to negotiate such good deals.
Cash is king, Paul. Cash is king. And the landlords have money sitting on their accounts that is not earning them the interest that they probably would like to have. So they will buy property. And this is a subject, again, I have brought to attention in this program and many times in my conversation with all that I can ever have a conversation with. And that is that the government really needs to find another route for investors to have some good returns on their money. That's why the first-time buyers suffer. So there you are saying there's 80% difference, or £80,000 difference in the value. I mean, the first-time buyers can't negotiate at those levels because they don't have the power of the cash in order to do that. And then the irony of it is, of course, some of those landlords will end up maybe putting those same properties that they've invested and bought in back into the market and making a profit. It's the nature of the beast. You can't change it, and I can't not endorse it, and I can't endorse it. Why? Because it's our business. So of course we have to protect as a business, and we will do what we can for all landlords to achieve the better. But my view is, for the first-time buyers, it's a little bit of another challenge, should I say, that they have to think about, because they don't have the power to negotiate.
It wouldn't be Property Matters if we didn't have a table or a graph, and as you can see on the screen there, we've got the we've got the best place to buy. Apparently, the West Midlands. 22% of the landlords are buying in West Midlands, an average price of £174,000. So interesting that the centre of the country is the focal point.
And it's going to be the focal point in the next 10 years or so, for a number of reasons. First of all, the rail high-speed network that has been on the card for some time is going to be central-based. The government has made some interesting U-turns in terms of where they're allowing development, and the most development is going to be considered around the Midlands. And look at the value for money. I mean, if you think that when I was a child, when we used to think traveling to the Midlands, it used to be a day trip, maybe a couple of day trips, to get there. People now get there in an hour or so because you can. So the world has just shrunk. Our country has shrunk through the network, through the motorways, the facilities that they've got. And so people are. And this year, particularly, the pandemic has made us change our ways of living. So people can afford to shift out there and think, well, actually, I can travel back, or I don't need to be sitting in my city office in London when I could actually be in the West Midlands and buy a property that's much cheaper than somewhere else. So yeah, all of the pluses are pointing into the West Midlands at this moment in time. And investors will buy, because those that can't buy will go and rent, and they can rent them probably cheaper than maybe in London.
Interesting to see that rents are also, not surprisingly, starting to rise again. For example, Greater London has put in its first month-on-month increase this year, since March, in fact. Inner London still continues to fall. We've talked about that many times on this programme, about people moving out. Southwest seems to be the biggest place in terms of growth, at nearly 8% month-on-month, which is quite surprising. Overall, the growth is from 1.4 to 3% in the month. So interesting to see that well, it's not surprising to see perhaps that landlords are keen to get in, as they can see the opportunity for returns growing.
Yes, and why wouldn't you want to be living in some parts of those areas that you've mentioned? The nicest thing about the United Kingdom and England, and we're very blessed with, is it has got some amazing countryside when you travel. And when you're out there and you look at those things, and I've traveled around the country, looking at properties for clients and so forth, and I just see the desire of living in that nice place in the countryside. Okay, communication is probably the bit that you have to sort of get over, but if you want to be by a train station, or you want to be connected to the city, then obviously you're going to be in a town centre of some sort. But the choice is immense, and there is a desire very clearly this particular year of deciding where that home is going to be, whether you're renting it or whether you're going to purchase it. We have actually decided to broaden our thoughts against all the things that may be what we used to think was normal.
It's quite reminiscent of 2016, isn't it, Joe, when you think about it, when we had the 3% second home surcharge put onto investment properties. So investors getting in on an opportunity to save some money again. But experts are suggesting it's not going to be quite such a cliff edge on the 31st of March as it was back when we did that in 2016. What's your view?
A very different scenario. And as I said, over the years, the government has used the property market to its advantage when they want to control or not control where the economy is going. And I've always said that the property is like the center of, it's like a bicycle hub, it's the hub. And off of it comes lots of offshoots. And every time somebody buys or rents a property or invests in a property, there are all the other industries around it that starts to have an effect. And they tend to be able to control that purely through property. So yes, it's not going to have as much of an effect. But whilst it does have this current effect, and it will bottom out a little bit and have a more straighter line perhaps in 2021, there'll be another scenario in 22, 23 when the government will be coming up for re-elections. There'll be other scenarios that will be given, and they'll use those things for people to sort of say, okay, now I want to buy this, or I want to invest in this, or I'm going to get a tax relief and that. There is always going to be a route for some sort. But I think, the 3% buy-to-let stamp duty thing that came in 2016, after that, it sort of put a mocker on it, it put the brakes on the whole thing. And people started to think, okay, well, I don't want to do that. Then the tax loops in rental properties became an issue. And now people are sitting at home thinking, well, I've got this money, what am I going to do? Best place to do is to invest in property again. So up we go again, as your graphs go, it'll be going up and down and up and down. And I'm sure next time you'll bring a little graph along and you'll show me all those demonstrations. So I'm waiting for that one to come along.
I'm sure it wasn't the government's intention with the stamp duty holiday to, line the pockets of the investors and the landlords. And eventually that's going to be the reality of it. And you mentioned earlier on that the government really needs to come up with an alternative suggestion or scheme. What ideas have you got around that? What do you think?
I just think that at a certain time in life, certain age point, none of us and nobody really wants to be a landlord if they can help it. You don't really want to be going in and dealing with a leaky tap for somebody at a certain point. You'd rather be perhaps on a nice cruise around the Mediterranean, knowing that you have some return on your investment when you get back, or while you're away. And fundamentally, that is the real point. It's not really difficult, in all honesty, but I think it's not happening because the government knows how it can handle. They know how to deal with the property section, and therefore that's the yardstick that they work with. But I mean, if you think about a fixed term deposit, that would probably give people a comfort knowing that they put their money into some sort of security, some sort of savings that gives them that. Why would they want to get involved in the more they get involved in that fixed side of things, the more opportunity there are for the first time buyers to get in? Because every time, like you just explained, and in your charts and graphs, that 80,000 pound lesser is what the landlords and the investors are paying, and the first time buyers are not going to be able to touch that. And the reason why they're able to do it is because they have cash. Cash is king. So what do they do with their cash? If that cash was actually invested in a long-term investment, it was giving them, today 5 or 6% return, for argument's sake, why would they want to be investing in property knowing full well that that money is sitting there and I'm going to get my return and I can go and have a nice holiday somewhere? But such tools do not exist. And because they don't exist and there's no other safety, and how many people property is probably the top 5 subjects that are discussed at what used to be our dinner table. I know that's not the case right now because everything is on a hold. But it's one of the major subjects that is discussed. It's what people want to do, and so investment will continue in that until and unless someone decides that there is another way. And all I'm saying is that the latter years of anyone's life, you don't particularly want to be going chasing. If you had the opportunity, and I'm sure if those that might listen and see this will see that it makes sense to have some sort of security bond and know that I'm getting my interest back, and thank you very much. Why would you want to do that? Because that's what it is. I mean, that's what a return on the property is by the time they paid their taxes. So those are the drivers. Those are the points that, the government is still getting some receipts in from.
Indeed. I think we
You're
have
frozen on me now.
Yeah, your sound is back. Let me move on to. Hopefully, you'll be back with me in a second. Occasionally, we get these glitches. The next and the final story is actually on a different tack, but we have talked about this before. I've seen the new term, which will probably be one of the words, Joe, that goes into the Oxford English Dictionary this year. The new freedom fighter that is a gladiator, as opposed to a gladiator. And these, of course, are the people who are living in high-rise blocks, either as tenants or as owners, and they have the leasehold and not necessarily the freehold. And of
You're
course, they're
crackling,
being.
Paul.
Sorry,
You're crackling. It's crackling.
is it?
Yeah.
You're clear here, so.
It froze and went off air, and now it's come back crackling.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh, that's
hopefully you
better.
can
You're
just
back.
make out what I'm saying. Can you?
No, you're better. You're back now.
Okay.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
The
You're just
rigors of
playing
the
games with
wonders
me
of the
today.
internet,
I
rather.
can feel you're playing like Christmas games or something here by disappearing here and then crackling there, and
Do you know one of the phenomenons of the whole sort of Zoom culture that we now live in is and obviously doing this kind of thing with clients, is the biggest problem you have is when the person you're talking to, and neither of us this applies to, so I don't know what the answer is, but the interesting thing is that 9 times out of 10, when you're talking to someone in business and they're down in their lounge, there's children upstairs either watching Netflix or Disney Channel or playing on their Xbox and taking all the internet and not allowing dad or mum to have the opportunity to do their business over Zoom. So Normally that's the case, but we can't honestly, in each of these circumstances, mine or yours, claim that that's what's actually happening. So I presume you're back with us now, are you?
I am. I'm here. I'm sort of
Fantastic. I don't know why.
listening to
It
you.
seems to be something that happens midway through the show every week at the moment. I don't know why, but anyway, we'll press on.
It makes it live. That's the good thing about it.
Absolutely. We were talking about the fact that the new term for the Oxford English Dictionary is gladiators, and this is for the tenants of high-rise blocks or the owners of flats within high-rise blocks. Of course, they've been forced by fire safety regulations to have to pay for waking watch, which is basically 24/7 fire marshals. And the average cost, apparently, Joe, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, that they're having to pay in addition to their normal service charges is £137 a month. Well, I mean that for some of the families that are living in these blocks, it's life changing, isn't it?
It's ridiculous, Paul, honestly. And I've seen some of the blocks where, you've got this fire marshal, and sort of a make-believe that looks like a fire engine, which is probably past its sell-by date to a large extent, sitting outside a block. And to be honest with you, even the bloke that's supposed to be in it is not normally in it. It's really heart-wrenching to think that this journey for gladiators, as you say, has reached to the point where people are suffering financially and actually really not getting the value for their money back, and it's all health and safety gone a bit wild. I understand that. I can't take that away, but it's just ridiculous to think that the amount of money that he's having to pay for that. There must be some way or shape or form that that claim has to come from somewhere else. Insurance companies are a great place to start with this, because they're great to take your money, but pretty lousy to give you money back when it actually comes to coughing out. So at some stage, somewhere will happen. But my heart goes out to all of those tenants, all of those landlords that have got those properties. And some of the freeholds are owned by sort of bigger organizations, and they just got to look at that. It's just a sad thing to think. But what's really sad is that we've got these make-believe fire engines and fire people sitting outside and having a sandwich, and that's what you're paying them for, because they just got to sit there and wait just in case there's a fire. And we have to be safe, but we also got to be a bit more cute.
It's got to be an effective policy, hasn't it? It's interesting that they're talking there about the fact that they've got £30 million from the government now to install these new automatic fire warning systems, which will take away the need for the waking watch. But as you rightly say, there are a lot of organisations that are owning these leases, and therefore they're seeing an opportunity to perhaps make a few pounds. And Robert Jenrick is asking trading standards to sort of look into this, to look at the claims of disproportionate charges.
Well, what's trading standards going to do? In all honesty, they've probably got enough on their plate.
If you ever try to ring them, you'll know exactly how busy they are.
Yeah, and so I look, this is a pass in the buck situation, really, isn't it? Well, we'll give it to trading standards because they've got bugger all else to do. But trading standards won't do anything, and the person that really loses out on all of these things is the innocent party. And the innocent party is, someone who's bought a property in good faith, knowing that they've taken all of the advice and precautions that they've been given along the route, gone to their lender's done a survey, surveyors done. Everyone does all the things that are. That's the normal way of buying. The last thing you've got to do is say to yourself, "Oh, hang on a minute, is that cladding all right out there? And do I have to pay for the fire engine car?" You don't go in there with that plan. So my heart really goes out to those guys, and hopefully there will be a solution. And more importantly, safety is number one. And I understand why they're doing it, but it is just a little bit far-fetched. In terms of how far they want to go and how much money that people have got to pay for it.
Yeah. Final topic of the week and final topic of the year, Joe. And I suppose I've got a headline for this, and home is where the heart is.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it? When you sort of think about where we are this year, what's happened. And so my subject, my topic for the day today really was exactly as you've just headlined it. Home is where the heart is. And you really don't realize the true value. And I think that's where my passion for the property really comes into it, because it's not just been a journey in the last 40 years of investors and land buyers and developers and the dreams and so forth. It is fundamentally where people have, they want to have their family, they want to live. And no better time to prove that true worth, true value, than what we've all had to face in 2020. Look at where it does. Every time something changes, we run back to our home. And we that's our sanctuary. That's where everybody feels comfortable. That's where people think, well, this is what I want to do. And in a way, it's been one of the reasons why it's been the most successful thing in the United Kingdom to want to ultimately purchase your own home, albeit a freehold or a leasehold. And you also ultimately want to go and set up your base in a rented property and live there for longer, because that's what you're going to call as your home for your family, for your children, for your pets, and so forth. And this Christmas, I think all I can say is that having had this journey in 2020, which was not planned for any one of us, none of us really saw it, none of us really probably valued it, and probably didn't understand it, and so many things were thrown in the way. But we're resilient in the United Kingdom. We toe the line and we deal with it, or at least most people do toe the line and deal with it, and some people don't. And that's why people will have to have these sort of spikes in what's been happening in terms of the pandemic. But look where we started. I mean, personally speaking, from my own point of view, we had losses of members of family, dear ones, and so forth, and that makes you stop and think about what you want to do in your own life. But what really comes back to is that it's the home. And even today, when I sit down and speak to you, and I was thinking about this as we wanted to start our program today, about where it is, and Christmas has come. Yesterday, Tier 4 was announced, and everyone has a home, a base, and that's the sanctuary. And that's our business. Our business is to help people find the right home, the right house, the right place where they feel comfortable, where they can, take off their shoes, put their feet up on the couch and watch the television, or perhaps maybe watch me yapping away. And just to say to themselves that, you know what, this is where I'm happiest. This is what happens. And so home is truly where the heart is. Home is where your family is. And this Christmas, I think, and this year, that has been really brought home, literally, excusing the pun of being home, but that's where it is. It's been brought home that we value our space, how little it might be, whether it's a little studio or a bedstead or whatever it is. You do a day's work and you want to get under that duvet and curl up and go to sleep. And because that's where your home is, and that there's no truer time than to say that this is it. And that's what homes have done this year. That's why people have looked at it. They've looked at the way they think, the way they can work from home. Everything has changed. It's been an amazing year in terms of our own personal understanding and structure. It's also been an amazing change for all those that are around us, the dear ones, the parents, and understanding the value of what that brings. So I think, I'm really proud and really pleased that it's what I do. I love what I do. I enjoy it. I like to sort of, try and advise and guide the people in the right way. It's a great passion. It's lovely to see what people do to their homes. It's great to see the energy that they put in to try and make it right. It's a tremendous place to be. And I think all I would say to everybody is that value what you've got, value its value. In other words, look at what you've got, make sure you look after it, protect it, deal with it, nurture it, make sure you cut the grass, make sure the shrubs are done and the rubbish is cleaned, and
Fix
your
the
neighbors
fence.
are all and your neighbors are all doing the same thing, so that at least if and when you decide to move, you're going to get a better price for it, so invest in your investment, is
Mm.
probably the way to look at it, and you'll take time to see that. Look what summer did for us. Thank God for the gardens. Thank God for the things that kids could play out and do those things, because you got that. It all focused back on the house. And I'm just going to say that it's been a privilege to have this program as Fairview International, which is our property side. We're there to help and guide, and show whatever we can in order to help anybody who is looking to buy their next home, or invest in their next home. And if you've got a property that you want to sell and it's not selling at the time that fits you, then of course we're here as auctioneers to help you achieve that. Always give us a call, and we'll be only too delighted to have a discussion and help you try and find the right way. Yes, there's lots of people out there, but my job is I enjoy doing what I do, and I know that I've got many clients that I've dealt with now for 4 generations, of different people and different families that come time and time again for just simply basic guide and advice. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go and buy and sell a house. It might not happen today, but it will happen in that journey. And so before I pack up and put up my gavel and what have you over the years to come, come along and see how I can help you, and what guidance we can do. And hopefully these programs that we've been running on a Sunday, whilst people watch them throughout there, and we've had a great feedback, a lot of calls on how valuable they found it, and understand that it's important to just get a sort of a layman's view. And I just try to give you a layman's view. I'm not a presenter in any shape or form to say, oh, this is how it's done. I just tell you how I see it. And I think that that's very important for you to understand. And if there's anything that anybody wants to know, then the number's on there. On there, you've got it there. Give us a call. Those that know me, got my mobile, call me and we can have a discussion. And I just think, enjoy the home, because that's where your heart is.
Well, your comments have resonated with many, Joe. Just a couple of comments up on the screen as you were talking there. So Kamal says, nice one. And Kassam, very nice indeed. So your comments resonate with people, which is great. And actually, interestingly, while we've been on air, Matt Hancock has been on the national television talking about the fact that he thinks that these restrictions that were introduced overnight probably would be with us for up to 4 months. So I guess we're going to have to get used to being in our homes even more.
There we are. So there's the value in your home is where your heart is. Get the curry pots on. That's all I say. And and I understand that that's something that you become a bit of a culinary on, Paul, over these periods. that you've been mastering the cooking.
Well, I've been doing my best to try and learn from the master, that is yourself, in terms of cooking the ultimate curry, which is, well, I'm getting better, and that's the great thing. Sonny Kapoor has just come on and said, I've enjoyed it and I've learned a lot from watching the show. Thank you both, and a Merry Christmas and be safe. And that's a great message for us to bring this show to a close, and indeed bring our first year, although we've only been on for a quarter of it, but it's our first year. And I suppose the last thing is to look forward. There's some negative stuff there, of course, which Mr. Hancock is talking about this morning. But how do you see 2021 panning out from a property perspective?
I think from a property perspective, it's going to be another good year. It really, this whole year is going to make people stop and think and focus about what's happened. It'll be a planning year. Christmas is, you're going to have the next 14 days or so all locked down. This is the time of the year when people will sit and reflect. It's funny enough, this is the time of the year when the house actually shrinks, because normally you have lots and lots of family around, but this year everybody is isolated and they'll have a little bit more space. I think Zoom calls will probably be the most prevalent. That will be the business to be in, because that's where most of the families will spend their time on. But I think it's a great time to reflect, great time to plan, great time to think about what you want to do in the next year, 2021. And I think I wish everybody a fantastic 2021. And I'm sorry to see all those that have had losses this year. And hopefully you can all just take stock, take time to think back and enjoy the good things of the people that we've lost, and look forward to the good things for the people that we have. And on that basis, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a great 2021.
Indeed. And on that note, we will be back, both of us, in. We're not here next week, obviously, but we will be here on January the 3rd, looking forward into 2021. By then, we'll be there, and we'll be coming to the end of the festivities. So I suppose, as you say, and indeed as Sunny Kapoor said, Merry Christmas and be safe. And we thank you for watching Property Matters each week with us, and we'll see you in the new year. We'll be back on Sunday, the 3rd of January.